Hello and welcome to Life of Grace. I'm Nancy and I just wanted to let you know something. God is always speaking to you. He is. In your day in, day out, workaday life, your comings and goings, your ordinary life, God is always messaging you. Now He speaks to you in a lot of different ways. He speaks to you through people. He can speak to you through circumstances. And He can speak to you deep unto deep, just in your innermost being with His Spirit, just like that. He also speaks through His Word, through the Bible. There's a lot of stories in the Bible about how people heard from God, and He spoke to them, and He spoke through them. In fact, it's possible that right now, God may even be speaking to you through me. Yes, me, Nancy. Now, I know He can use me because there's a story in the Bible about how God spoke through a donkey. So I know that if He spoke through a donkey, He can definitely speak through me. He can speak through a jackass. He can even speak through you. But you know, now there are some people who, they don't want to hear from God. They don't want to hear from anybody. That reminds me of that story about Bubba and Earl and how they went fishing that one day, and they'd been out on the boat bass fishing all day long, chewing tobacco and drinking beer, and they hadn't spoken a word to each other. And all of a sudden, Bubba ups and says, "You know, I think I'm going to divorce my wife. She ain't spoke to me in over 2 months." And Earl took a long, slow swig from his beer and said, "You might want to rethink that. A woman like that's hard to find." But you know, I'll tell you, you may be the kind of person who doesn't even believe that God exists. You might not even believe that God actually speaks to people if He does exist. And maybe you just write miracles off as coincidences, or there's some kind of scientific explanation. It can't possibly be that God is intervening in people's lives. But I want you to consider that maybe, just maybe, He does exist. And maybe He is speaking to you right now through me. Maybe. And maybe He loves you and wants a relationship with you and has a plan for your life. A wonderful plan. And He's just waiting for you to answer His call. I know a story. Now this really happened. This is a true story. A man named Ken Gaub. He's a television preacher, and he is home-based out of Washington State. And Ken and his family were traveling on vacation through Ohio. And while they were on vacation, he stopped and went into a convenience store. When he came out, the phone in the phone booth was ringing, and there wasn't anybody around, so he, out of curiosity, just decided that he was going to answer it. And when he picked up the phone, the long-distance operator said, "I have a long-distance call for Ken Gaub." Well, when he picked himself up off the floor, he said, "Well, this is Ken Gaub." And there was a woman on the other end of the line who was very distraught. In fact, she was suicidal. She had seen Ken Gaub on TV, and she wanted to talk to him about what she could do to get her life together and maybe know God. And she was praying. And she was seeking God, and she was saying, "God, if you really do exist, then I need to talk to this Ken Gaub." And all of a sudden, this phone number came in her mind, and she thought it was the one that she had heard from, his television show. And it turned out that when she called it, it was an obscure phone in a phone booth, and it happened to ring just at the time when Ken Gaub was walking by. This incident absolutely changed Ken's life. It changed her life too. The book is called When God's Got Your Number, and it's by Ken Gaub, and it's an awesome story. It's a true story. You know, it could be that God's got your number right now, and He's speaking to you, and He wants you to answer Him. You know, the way that we come to know God is through Jesus Christ. Jesus said, "If you want to know God, then know me." He said that everything that you need to know about God, you can learn through me, because Jesus said He was God. He is the Son of God, and He's the way, the truth, and the life. So if you want to know God, say yes to Jesus. He may be calling. Answer His call. I'm Nancy King. May you have a life of grace.